Live everywhere.
Daily Co's Radio on netrootsradio.com presents
David Waldron. Kagro in the Morning Show. Now, here's David Waldman.
Hey everybody, how you doing? It is Friday, September 21st, 2018, believe it or not, that's where we are. Wow, what a day. Okay, so, before airtime, Ed Whalen, whoever the hell that is, and I'm assured he's a totally serious guy and everything, has, I guess, not quite retracted his theory, but he has deleted his tweets, which, fair is fair. I also deleted my tweet accusing him of the murder of Antonin Scalia. And so we're even now, and it's all good. We've both deleted our tweets, and we're both responsible people once again. I point out he does not retract, but you have probably heard all of this. Let's see. I have one report here that says he didn't delete it. He's just apologizing for it. But I actually went and took a look for his tweet just about a minute ago, and I couldn't find it when I looked for it. So I think he actually has deleted it. Anyway, what a day. And, it's another day for, as Kate Sherrill says, Kagro in the morning, come for the political analysis, stay for the pop culture references. I was just wondering about this stuff. You must have heard this theory by now, right? I mean, you're not waking up to this and turning on the radio and saying, if you're turning on the radio, you're in trouble. You gotta be turning on your computer and turning on the pretend radio and saying, What is this thing? Ed Whelan, I don't know, a bunch of conservative people insist he's a sober-minded, inside player on judicial nominations. And he might be an inside player on judicial nominations. I guess he's not that sober-minded. A lot of people were reminding us, no, you guys in the media just think he's sober-minded. You keep pretending he's sober-minded, even though he keeps doing ridiculous, outlandish things. And there are some compilations of his previous hits in the past circulating on Twitter. And basically, something they've been hinting at for a couple of days now, one is that the frog that keeps returning to my throat each morning is not a frog at all, but Chris Garrett, a 1983 graduate of Georgetown Prep who happens to look exactly like Brett Kavanaugh. That's the actual theory. Kavanaugh hinted the other day that maybe Dr. Ford, I guess we'll call her now, Christine Blasey Ford, was mistaken, confused about the identity of her attacker, and that there was somebody in his class that played football also at Georgetown Prep who looked just like him, and probably it was him that attacked her, although he didn't go so far as to say that. That was Ed Whelan's job, I guess, to go ahead and say that. And it made you wonder, well, let's get to the story. He's deleted it, so I can't read you the goofy tweet, although I'm sure lots of people have saved it somewhere. But he put together this, it didn't look good, this theory, in terms of, I'm sane and you shouldn't put me in a mental institution. That kind of, that being the standard. It didn't look that good. He put together this theory running off of this, maybe you had this mistaken identity thing. And this is amazing because now I'm jumping around on the story. The story developed into, where could this have come from? Did Ed Whelan develop this by himself? The story was, okay, this guy looks exactly like him. And then Whelan takes it and says, from Ford's description of the house in which the party was being held in and at which she was attacked, from her description of the house and the layout of the house, I took a look at the childhood home of this Chris Garrett person. First of all, I put their yearbook pictures side by side, and there's some resemblance, and I mean, there's the old joke about, I guess, all blank race people look alike, which is a terrible joke. And I guess you could go with that. There's some similarity there. There's no questioning that. But I don't know how big Georgetown Prep is. And I think the prep school circles in Bethesda were relatively small. Ford has since said, no, I knew Chris Garrett well. I socialized with him all the time. And I knew Brett Kavanaugh, too. I know the difference between them. I wouldn't have mistaken them. And, of course, anybody who actually knew them probably wouldn't mistake them. But he took a look at the childhood home of this Chris Garrett guy. How Ed Whelan knew, this is the big question. How did he know to look for a guy that looked just like him in the yearbook? And everybody says, Kavanaugh had nothing to do with this, which is nonsense because Kavanaugh was the one that floated this idea of there being mistaken identity or Ford being confused in some way, which I guess was supposed to be like the wink, wink, look at my yearbook, there's a guy. And as it happens in the Georgetown Prep yearbook, for whatever reason, this is a practice I hope they have since abandoned. They put in your senior portrait, your name. That's not the part they should abandon. They should absolutely identify the people by name. They're really going to be upset if they aren't. But it puts their address. My yearbook might have done it, not quite in the same format, but that doesn't make no sense at all. Like, I guess the idea was once you'll want to look up your old friends or something. But if you're friends, you know where they live, whatever. Maybe I got no idea why they thought that was a good idea. Maybe they just needed content. Yearbooks, they're in need of content. So they put their address in there, which, 36 years later is not a huge problem. Most people probably not still living in their childhood homes, though their parents may be. But you can look up their houses. Kavanaugh's house, the other guy, Mark Judge, his house, you can look it up if you want. Anyway, somebody must have tipped Ed Whelan off that there's a doppelganger in the same class at Georgetown Prep. They find this guy, Chris Garrett. They look up his address, thanks to the stupid practice of the yearbook. And Whelan takes it and goes to Zillow.com with it because all of life's mysteries are solved at Zillow.com. And apparently you can... there are files on the house. I guess if the house has been put on the market recently, is that where they get this sort of information? They have a floor plan for houses that have been put up for sale and are entered into the system. I don't think you can just get the floor plan of any house, but whatever. This one, I guess, had been through a recent enough sale that there was a floor plan posted, allegedly, although who knows where he got the stupid floor plan from. Nobody checked that. It was too dumb of an idea to bother spending any time on. And he says, well, she described a short staircase leading up to the second floor, and this house has a short staircase. Now, there was no discussion, as we supposed later on this morning, I guess, later on in the story, as Jeanine Pirro spent time on Fox insisting that this was somehow a valid theory. I did wonder aloud whether or not, it's possible that aliens built Chris Garrett's house, and that accounts for the short staircase. And, of course, such distinguishing features as there being a bedroom across the hallway from a bathroom, which was also part of Ford's description of the layout of the house, an innovative practice that I don't think you will not find more than, I would say, probably 100% of the houses in Bethesda have bathrooms across the hall from a bedroom. So it narrows it down quite a bit, don't you think? Anyway, he had this whole theory about how the layout matched this very vague description of the house, according to Ford, doing her best to remember, and she probably remembers certain details of it pretty clearly, of the layout of the house. He goes on at great length showing the floor plans and the pictures of the two people, and then just says basically his conclusion is that it was Chris Garrett, and he names the guy and everything. He shows his yearbook picture, his home, his home address when he was a kid, etc. And says he's the one that did this. And poor Brett Kavanaugh, why, he wasn't even there. He was helping widows and orphans in China at the time. And it must have been this Chris Garrett guy, which is, you think, an enormously irresponsible thing to do, because then, of course, what you're doing is sitting there and saying, I know who attempted to rape Christine Blasey Ford those many years ago. Chris Garrett. And what's the difference? What's he gonna? Who cares, right? It's 36 years in the past. As we know, no one holds anyone responsible for any of these things. And it's not like he's in a position where that's going to hurt him at this point anyway. He's probably dead. No, he's a middle school teacher. Oh, so yeah, that's problematic. That's probably not good for his career either. However, maybe it's not such a big problem because, oddly enough, Chris Garrett appears in the letter from the, we haven't read this letter yet, but early on, when this was like a normal, horrible nomination, there was a letter from other Georgetown Prep alums saying, golly, Brett Kavanaugh is a fantastic guy, and Chris Garrett is in there, which is how we know he's a middle school teacher. And so I guess they're best buds. And Whalen's now deleted, I guess, theory had a whole thing about how those guys were all part of the same circle of friends. So now I guess the working theory and the other cuckoo world that we've been forced to develop around Ed Whalen's cuckoo world. The question is, did Chris Garrett give some sort of assent to taking the rap for this? I mean, he won't, I don't think, but it's not going to, it's going to be a little uncomfortable. But in exchange for getting Kavanaugh cleared to the Supreme Court, was that a deal that he was willing to make? I don't know. I don't think even with a good friend from high school, I'd say, yeah, I'm just a middle school teacher. A few stray accusations of attempted rape of mid-teen kids probably can't hurt me that much. Go ahead, go for it. And then since you're on the Supreme Court, I'll sue, I don't know, Ed Whalen, perhaps. And you'll be on the Supreme Court and you can totally rule for me. Would that would really rule, man. And I don't know whether he thinks that's how it works. I don't have any idea whether they had any coordination at all. But there was clearly some coordination among Republicans. Anyway, that's, I don't know, that's a little surprising and weird. And I just can't believe that they went ahead and did that. And then, of course, the rest of the right-wing lunosphere has taken off with the theory, and it's all over Fox News this morning. Like I said, Jeanine Pirro having some ridiculous comment about it. I can't even remember what it was now. Who cares? Jeanine Pirro said it. No point in repeating it. And basically, it's now been injected into the bloodstream. So Ed Whalen can apologize and go back to being a serious-minded intellectual, a dark web intellectual, if you really want to let him just continue to get away with this stuff. It's a little weird, to say the very least. So yeah, here we are. This morning, Fox and Friends spreading Ed Whelan's smear of Kavanaugh's classmate. So that's nice. And apparently, no repercussions from that. And Ed Whelan having washed his hands of it. It's all good. I don't know what to tell you. They're really going crazy over there. And I guess it's supposed to be an indication of their desperation. All right. So, man, what else should we be doing with this today? I did enjoy, as Kate Sherrill told you, the pop culture reference stuff. There was a lot of good opportunity to have fun with that lunatic theory about mistaken identity. And I wasn't the only one that did it either. And I mean, it really struck me as it was such a weird conspiracy to weave together with the floor plans and everything. It reminded me of sovereign citizen stuff. And yes, he has a doppelganger in his class. And so do you. Everyone does. When every American is born, the deep state creates a corporation with an identical name to theirs and then transfers that citizen's rights to the corporation. And if you want to live as a sovereign natural person, you have to declare yourself a sovereign citizen. And also, I forgot about the part that they create a doppelganger in a secret lab, and they usually put him in another high school. But sometimes when the government needs to pull its hijinks, they put him in the same high school. And I don't know exactly what happens next, but I know this: you don't have to pay taxes. So there, it's a good deal for everyone. It's duh. I don't know. And then the pop culture references began to come to me, and I'm thinking, when was the last time this crackpot of a theory? Is that the right part of the speech? I'm going to turn it into one. This crackpot of a theory, this crackpottedness, something, blah, 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 of the theory got anywhere. And I thought of Seinfeld. I got it. And they put a guy who looks exactly like him in the same high school, and he gets mistaken for an attempted rapist because he looks just like him. And then they catch him, and Garrett is sentenced to be his butler. And now we have a sitcom. I saw, let's see, who put this one out? Oh, our friends at the Tom Zone. It's Tom, but I forget his last name because it's not in his profile anymore, but he's a funny guy. And he pulled out the Time Cube stuff on this one. Ed Whelan as Time Cube guy. Then I figured there's also, now we're going to have our big showdown in the hearing, and Kavanaugh can show up for a hearing wearing the neck brace, and Ford will intentionally drop her briefcase loudly on the table, and Kavanaugh will snap his head to look at the noise, and then pow, we gotcha. And then they take off the rubber mask, and Scooby and the gang reveal that he's old man Whelan. After all, I got no idea how this could possibly have occurred to him as a good idea, and it didn't, because I guess the plan always was for him to just simply apologize later and then say, I didn't do it, after it was already, like I said, injected into the bloodstream. The last one that occurred to me, all the courtroom scenes, all the really truly great courtroom dramas occurring to me. That's Joe Pesci finally driving the point home. And because both house floor plans were made by GM, were they both available in metallic mint green paint? I did get an answer. They were. Thank you, Mr. Whelan. You have been a lovely... Ew. Never mind, I can't go through with the rest of it. He's not a well-looking man, Ed Whelan, but, more than a passing resemblance to Lurch, I think, but younger. So, who knows? Oh, there's the Janine Pirro comment. Let's see. What if Christine Blasey Ford was hypnotized by her therapist? I forgot about that. Yeah, what if, man? That could have happened. And then what if oh my God, I just thought of it. What if her hypnotist was Chris Garrett? That is the answer. I think that's probably explains everything. I have to tweet that immediately. I have to interrupt the show and make sure everyone knows this fantastic theory before it disappears. Now I won Twitter, so thank you for bearing with me. There's other things going on, but I don't see why we would spend any time on them, other than, as Bill does in his morning tweet, because I did in my morning post, reminding you that, yes, it's a true fact, I think. It's been claimed. It's on CNN, so there you have it. It's got to be serious. That this is totally different. But in case you were thinking, oh my God, Ed Whelan is crazier than the president. No, the president is crazier and dopier than Ed Whelan, even now. This one I heard about yesterday, forgot to mention it, just bears some mentioning, I guess. The Spanish foreign minister. I don't know where this was supposed to have happened. Spain, I guess. This part, his discussion of it. I don't know where Trump and the Spanish foreign minister last spoke, but I'm sure they've come across one another in the past in any number of settings. The Spanish foreign minister claims Trump told him to build a wall, because he's into walls, across the Sahara Desert to stop migrants. Apparently a bit of an issue with migrants everywhere. There's a migrant crisis everywhere. And I guess Spain is getting its share. It's not far from a certain part of northern Africa across to southern Spain. The Straits of Gibraltar make it's pretty close. And even if you don't cross right there, you know how the land masses come together there. So I wouldn't be surprised if they were experiencing an influx of refugees who are making their crossing there. But this was an interesting story. Spanish Foreign Minister Josep Borrell, I guess. Does he say Borrell with the two L's? It's not Borrell, is it? You would think the two L's at the end of it make me think that it's just not a Spanish origin name, and he pronounces the L's, but who knows? Anyway, he claims that U.S. President Donald Trump suggested Spain should build a wall against the across the Sahara Desert to deal with the issue of migration from Africa, which is an odd notion, really. But let's see. We'll just read a little bit more here. He made the remarks in a speech Tuesday during a lunch at Club Siglo, Siglo 21, I see, in Madrid, in reference to the expected massive growth in the number of young Africans seeking work in the next 2 decades. So they don't even have this problem yet. He wants a wall. He did not specify where Trump had spoken, but described it as happening recently. I know where he spoke. He spoke out of his ass. But, I'm not sure where his ass was at the time. If that's what you're asking? Got it. I don't know. Do we know where his elbow was? He can't tell the difference. Can you? You need to build a wall around the Sahara. Holy mackerel, though. Around the whole. I didn't realize that he wanted to surround the Sahara Desert. One of the places you probably don't need to build a wall to keep people out is the Sahara Desert. I mean, people do cross it at great peril to their lives, but I don't know. I think maybe posted no trespassing sign would probably do it, but you want to wall in the Sahara Desert, I guess go for it if you think you can build a wall on sand. But there maybe, he says, build it just off the sand. He's got it all the details worked out. Don't try to trip Trump up on this one. You need to build a wall around the Sahara, Trump said, according to the foreign minister. The minister impersonated Trump's voice as he spoke. That's fantastic. According to an audio file heard by CNN, is that not in here? How could you have that and not, if embedded everything else in the world is playing here? I got commercials for I don't know what. It looks like a happy family there. Sears. See, you know they're happy now. They had the audio of him imitating. That would have been great. I wonder if he does it in a Spanish accent or can turn off the accent. Wow, that's the true story. Anyway, the White House disputed the account, but so what? Blah, blah, blah. Should I tell you how they dispute it? No, who cares? According to the Spanish foreign minister, Trump, asked if he was aware of the size of the Sahara, replied, "It can't be bigger than our border with Mexico." Well, yes, it is way bigger than the border with Mexico, and in any case, it wouldn't be very useful to do that. Not to mention the fact that the Sahara Desert, not in Spain, it would be, I think, difficult for Spain to make the I don't think they would be able to get the building permits, basically, is what I'm saying, because Sahara Desert is, of course, in other countries, and they might not want a wall, although they might not object necessarily to walling in the Sahara. It's expanding. I want you to stop this, the desertification of the rest of Africa above, well, or I guess it's spreading south, sub-Saharan Africa, quickly becoming Saharan Africa in some places, and a wall might help, but not the kind of wall he's thinking. He wants to wall in the part of the desert that's not growing. The Sahara Desert, by the way, extends for nearly 3,000 miles across the African continent. Around a dozen countries lie wholly or in part within the Sahara, including, these are all the permits you would need. First, you got to get the gas lines marked. Then you got to get a permit from Morocco, and then Tunisia, and then Libya. Don't even get me started on Mali. Mauritania is notoriously difficult to get an inspector. Egypt, Algeria, Chad, and Niger. I just wanted to pronounce it that way because I think it's cool. Anyway, I could probably put it together for you. Get you a bid as a general contractor. You get the idea. Spain, not one of the countries in Africa or the Sahara Desert at all. So any wall would have to be built entirely on another nation's land, which is fine because, I don't know, Trump gets things done, right? Building permits, I can get you that. The question is, where are you going to get the cement? The U.S.-Mexico border, by the way, a little under 2,000 miles long. How are we doing on that fence, that wall? Not so good? I mean, you were able to campaign for president on the lack of it, and we still lack it, even though you tell everybody it's fantastic, it's beautiful, we've done the whole thing. We're building a second one, as a matter of fact, for half the price in Spain. And, 2,000, shorter than 3,000. And by the way, a wall around the Sahara Desert. Does he really mean, did he mean it surrounding? Because it's always being reported as across the desert. And it would go across the desert, but then it would cross again, and also along the sides if you were to surround it. They helpfully point out here in CNN that Trump was elected in 2016, having campaigned on a promise to build a wall along the United States southern border, which he said Mexico would pay for. Ooh, who pays for this one? It doesn't say that. That's probably one of the... That should have been the Spanish foreign minister's answer. Who's going to pay for it? Spanish foreign minister Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. Who will pay for it? You're only deeply serious if you can come up with who will pay for it. It does say here, thankfully, saving our first portion of the story, immigration is a contentious issue in Spain. All of these, they don't want all these people coming in speaking Spanish, right? So get out of here. You're in Spain. Speak. Damn it. My whole platform is falling apart. Anyway, immigration is a contentious issue in Spain, as in many countries in Europe. Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez. I am not kidding. That sounds like I made the name up, but that's the names of people in Spain. What are you laughing at? Pedro Sanchez faced criticism from some in June when he offered refuge in Spain to more than 600 migrants on a rescue ship after they were turned away by Italy's populist leaders. And there's nothing more populist than turning away the poor. More than 33,000 immigrants. By the way, good on you, Prime Minister Sanchez. Thank you very much for doing that. And it's a mitzvah. And you had less to deal with at Yom Kippur this year as a result. I promise you that. More than 33,000 migrants have arrived in Spain by sea so far this year, according to the International Organization for Migration, a UN agency. That figure represents 43% of all irregular arrivals via the Mediterranean this year, the IOM said, putting Spain ahead of Italy and Greece, also popular destinations for migrants arriving by sea. That makes it sound like it's a vacation. Popular destination. Not untrue. And I guess those are the crossings that make the most sense. Just sort of hopping, along the shoreline of the Mediterranean to get to the easternmost members of the Western European coalition, essentially, and not the Western Union, but rather the European Union. Western Union. Send a telegram. I'm about to migrate into your country. Make way. Spain, I guess, like I said, the next easiest crossing in terms of how much water you got to cross. The question is, how do you get to what's across from Gibraltar? Tangiers, I guess, is essentially what we're talking about. That's my recollection of where they cross. Morocco, I guess, is the closest. I don't know how you get there. I don't know where you're coming from. You might have to be walking across the Sahara Desert, hence the wall. So, whatever. Instead, scrap your plans for the moving sidewalk across the Sahara Desert and build a wall instead. Hi everybody, it's me, David. Let's change things up from the old fundraising pitch for just a minute and talk instead about how you can be a part of our show. If you've got a smartphone or any other electronic recording device, why not sit down and record a segment for us? Read us an important article and give us your take. Or read one of your own original essays, or even just give us your commentary on something you'd like to share that's important to you. Then send the file to me at kagrox@gmail.com and I'll try and work it into the show. Short segments, a few minutes in length, are easiest to fit in. And of course, I can't always guarantee that I'll be able to play everything, but if you've ever shouted at your radio or TV about something you wish was being covered, here's your chance to change that. Make the show your own. Send your submissions to me at kagrox@gmail.com. 43% of all irregular arrivals, so that's a pretty significant number. Spain also has two tiny northern African territories which border Morocco. And I mean, there is that. I was going to say, it used to be that Spain had colonized a good part of Morocco. Now, Ceuta and Melilla, I guess you would say, Mellilla, they are Europe's only land borders with Africa. And, wow, it's you learn something new about every 6 days in our show. Anyway, the enclaves, which lie on the Mediterranean coast, have long been popular transit points for sub-Saharan African migrants. Last month, several hundred migrants stormed a border fence to enter Ceuta. I hope I'm pronouncing that one correctly, leaving more than 150 people injured. So the fence didn't work. You should build a wall. Across 3,000 miles. It's a tiny little enclave, but build a 3,000-mile wall. The number of migrants seeking to enter Europe illegally has fallen sharply from a peak in 2015 when the IOM recorded total arrivals to Europe by sea at just over 1 million. Altogether, around 77,500 immigrants have reached Europe by sea illegally so far this year, according to the IMO. And I just realized now, welcome back. Why don't you say to the Kagro in the Morning Show that none of my alarms for the brakes have been set. And so that's why you may have heard me talk my way into and through the break. And I could really have used that break. So why don't I take it now? Goodbye, everybody. Sorry about that one, Justice. That probably sounded rather awkward. And trust me, there were great jokes in that break. I think there were a few, too. We'll fix it in podcast is how we say things around here. And time to move on to a couple other ideas. Then besides the goofy Sahara Desert Wall idea, let's see. Some comments here. Let's see. Matthew Rigdon. Matthew, what do you have to say for us here? Oh, I need to open this thing up here before I lose track of that and reset my Twitter and get it rolling. It looks like everybody enjoyed the My Cousin Vinny references. Lots of response to that one. Matthew Rigdon saying, can Ed Whelan be sued for libel after his Twitter misadventure? Sure. Everybody can be sued for libel. You can sue. I don't know whether you're going to win. I know that's a dumb answer, but that's the real answer. Maybe. I mean, that's, he could be. The only question is, is Chris Garrett in on it? Does he care? I don't really know. But yeah, you probably could. Why not? I don't see why not. Let's see. Bill in Portland, still there. Let's see. Hey, here's something going on at the Value Voters Summit. Oh, goodness. Armando is calling, and he's at the Value Voters Summit. We can ask him this question. Hang on a second. Hi, Armando. How you doing?
I'm not at the Value Voters Summit. What are
why
you
not?
talking about?
I don't know. I'm reading Bill's tweet. He said, here's something going on. The Value Voters Summit starts today, and then you called. So I figured that must be, I'm here.
No, that's actually the libel question.
Oh, okay, good.
I think, frankly, all of it is couched as opinion, so it's probably not going to be slander. It's just sleazy.
You think that's some opinion? I hear floor plans.
I hear you. And I know it's hard to swallow, but he didn't say the guy did it. He just was positing this theory.
Yeah, I guess so. I didn't say he did it. I just said, here's his childhood home, the address where maybe his parents live now. I don't know. Here's the floor plan. They look identical. They hang out in the same circles. Here's a Facebook exchange between him and Mark Judge, which, by the way, was, I did see that one, and I said, oh, it's so adorable. They're still just as disgusting as they were in high school. It's a Facebook post, and not the first one I've seen, by the way, from Mark Judge. And I am not searching Mark Judge's Facebook feed. It's just I've seen 2 screen grabs from his Facebook circulated on Twitter, and both of them, I don't know if they're from the same trip or whatever, but he seems to be making a habit of
ogling young girls.
Yeah, and taking pictures of
anybody?
It does, and apparently 3 people, because Chris Garrett and Mark Judge were laughing it up about how awesome it was that Mark found himself snapping photos of what appeared to be like a spring break poolside bikini hula hooping contest, because that's what you do when you're 53. And it was funny because he's snapping all these pictures. The first exchange I saw, he's snapping all these photos, and all his friends are like, what are you doing? You know, should you be doing this? And he's like, oh, don't worry, I'm the chaperone. Like, oh no, that's worse. You know, I'm chaperoning them. This is just kids having fun. Well, maybe you shouldn't be chaperoning
while you're ogling them. Oh my
right.
God.
These guys never stop. So, all right. Could he be sued for libel? My answer to everything is sure. Everybody can be sued for everything. Can he win?
Anybody can sue anybody for anything.
You say no. And libel is not something that, people get held liable for a lot in this country. We're pretty loose with that stuff. Apparently you can do better in England, but.
Well, there's a few defenses. I think the opinion defense is probably the best one. Arguably, there's a public interest privilege here. It's a matter of public interest. I mean,
true.
Was he in it? It's kind of weird. Listen, he shouldn't have done it. Just as from their own perspective, I actually am much more interested in my own conspiracy theory, which I will opine on now, if you permit me.
This is opinion, so it is. I'll allow it. As you would say if you were a judge.
It's just my opinion, man.
All right.
So here I go.
Yes.
This is all concocted by that cabal of right-wing guys, and I think Kavanaugh might have been in on it.
I think so. I mean, he did say he laid the groundwork for it, I think, and saying, she was confused about who did this. He said that a couple of days ago.
Well, first of all, just so you know, Wayland is obviously he's really been a prime player in all these court wars.
That is
forever.
Apparently true. People are saying that.
I
Many people are saying this.
13 years ago.
Okay.
I forget where he was then, but he was at one of these places. I don't think he had invented this ethics and policy thing yet. That I assume the Koch brothers fund. I don't really know who funds them, but somebody funds them.
Yes.
But he's been with them. He's very close to Federalist Society, Leonard Leo.
This appears to be true.
I mean, the Post reports that he's been in on the whole thing, the whole strategizing.
Yeah.
So it's hard to fathom the idea that he wasn't in. And, of course, the smoking gun, such as it is, that connects Kavanaugh to it is Orrin Hatch, who basically did the mistaken identity thing after he said, I talked to Judge Kavanaugh, and I think it probably was mistaken identity. I mean, leading you to believe that there was something Kavanaugh said to Hatch about a mistaken identity theory.
Well, if it wasn't concocted with Kavanaugh's agreement or at his prompting, I would be very interested to hear from Chris Garrett whether he's angry with Ed Whelan.
I thought that's the guy I'd like to hear from. Hey, they just called you a rapist, man. What do you think about that?
I think it's awesome. What? No.
Well, he signed a letter in support of Kavanaugh.
Yes, right. So he clearly, the question is, does he support Kavanaugh enough to say, look, you say no one can be prosecuted for this? Fine, then I'll go along with this. I don't know why anyone would think that they couldn't be, but it's unlikely. That's it.
Yeah, I think there's been all this back and forth about the statute of limitations in Maryland, and normally a statute of limitations will apply at the time of the alleged crime. So you'd have to go back to 1982 and see what the law was then. I guess that was the year, if I'm not getting it wrong.
I think that's right.
And you'd have to see if there was a statute of limitations there. Most of us don't care enough to go look back and see if there was a statute of limitations because there's not going to be a prosecution anyway. There is no statute of limitations today. And the retroactivity of a statute of limitations is actually a pretty litigated issue. Generally speaking, they are presumed not to be retroactive unless the legislature says they are. Again, there's not going to be a prosecution, so I'm not going to dig into it. If some Maryland lawyer knows the answer, terrific, tell us the answer, and we'll go to it. So that would apply to Garrett as well. And by the way, Mark Judge, who would certainly be not a conspirator, but an accomplice in the act because he turned up the music and locked the door and did all this other stuff, according to the allegations.
Yes.
So, yeah, we'll see. But I do think that I'm surprised at some of the reactions that, hey, if Kavanaugh was in on it, he should be disqualified and removed from the court.
All right.
I'm glad they're saying it, and I don't disagree. I just think it's funny when you consider he basically lied under oath about participating in the Manny Miranda stolen documents.
Yes. Oh, there's a number of things that you should remove him from the courts for.
I put that one there because it's the one that's really just indefensible. I mean, he knew they were. There's, you got to be a moron not to have known that it was all stolen material.
Yeah.
In fact, I'd give Glenn Kessler a nod because he wrote a good piece about that yesterday. If you haven't seen it, but
I did. We read it, and it was another person, I guess, writing in that fact checker column. It wasn't Kessler. So you can't even give him a nod for that. But
I give the other person whose name I just mangled. Hey, it was a mistaken identity for me. Sorry.
Great job on that article, Chris Garrett, whoever you are.
Exactly. You look just like Kessler. What can I tell you?
It's hard to tell things apart.
So, again, I think that was a clear-cut perjury, and I actually think you could convict him on it, to be honest with you. But who's going to charge him? Nobody.
Right.
I think I'm going to bring everybody down. I think he's going to be confirmed.
Okay.
I'm sorry to say. I think Susan Collins has made it clear she's going to vote for him unless he confesses, and maybe even then.
I'd like to see that.
I confess, I'm still voting yes. I don't care.
Right. I don't know that you. Wait a minute. Who is that just confessed? Chris Garrett? What the hell? They ought to try putting Chris Garrett in robes and sneak him into the Supreme Court. Yeah. See if it works.
It's funny. One of the things that I'm trying to get people to realize is there are no rules. I actually included you on a tweet.
I didn't catch it this morning.
I got into a little spat with Hugh Hewitt about this, and he wrote what's true. Senate majority can do whatever it wants.
Yeah, well, true.
Hey,
although
who knew?
It was a sort of sledgehammer on a fly there, really. I mean, you don't need to really quote me the Constitution to know that the Senate Judiciary Committee can set a schedule for hearings.
Or have no hearings. Just say, we vote to bring it right to the floor, right?
Yeah, I mean, but that's not, I don't know. It doesn't rise to a constitutional level,
rules,
but okay.
David, but there are no rules.
Right.
That's my point. There are no norms. But there are norms, but there are no norms.
Yeah.
I think it's important that message get
or none that are
across the Democratic senators and Democratic voters in the media. What did Mitch McConnell do? He broke all the norms. You want to say Reid did? Fine. You want to even call it the Biden rule? Whatever. All right. You can figure out who did it first. Fine. But let's just all agree there are no rules.
Yeah. All right.
Don't get all upset because the majority of the Senate did something.
Yes.
The filibuster wasn't in the Constitution.
Right.
Committees aren't in the Constitution. The next Senate could say we're not going to have any freaking committees. Right?
Yes. There's no reason for committees. Is just something useful that they came up with, and they said, all right, we're allowed to do that.
Exactly. I mean, there's nothing in the Constitution about committees.
No, not at all.
So, again, the Constitution says the Senate does what it does. And what I'm getting at is the House also does what it does. And the president does what he does. And the next time the Democrats have the House and the Senate and the president, don't whine to me about norms and rules when we do what we have to do to fix the Supreme Court.
Mm-hmm. Well, I won't.
I know you won't, but I don't want to hear it. You will, and I'll pull out. Wait a second. You said the majority does what it wants.
Right.
It's in the Constitution.
That's true. He did say that. So now you have that.
I have it. Who cares? I understand that, but I'd like to just drive it home. I mean, Chris Coons is talking about reinstituting the filibuster.
Okay, go ahead. You talk about that.
And when's that going to happen? When there's a Democratic president? Oh, that's terrific. Because what are you talking about?
Yeah, what we should do is make sure we can't pass anything. And what a great time to reinstate the filibuster too. Like you just saw what they did with the Supreme Court nomination. That they didn't have to use the filibuster to do it or anything. But we're going to hold a vacancy open for over a year so that Donald Trump can fill it. And you know what we should do? We should make it so it's impossible for us to do anything unless it's on their say-so now that they're in the minority.
There's Leahy and his stupid blue slips.
Yeah. Yep. That's true. I'd be curious to see whether he would reinstate that, too.
I mean, these guys, I know they come from another time. I get it. There was more of that. There was norms, and people sort of followed them. It was maybe something that was only broken on occasion.
Yeah.
But that's gone. It's over. I honestly hope everyone gets that now. That's been my goal. I don't know why, but the Republicans want this guy. It could be Trump wants him because
only some of them. Yeah,
he's going to take care of him.
I guess
the usual right-wing court suspects want him because he's going to overturn Roe and dismantle the regulatory state and do all the things we've been saying that once they get control of, they're going to do.
Yeah, it's
at that point, what are we going to do? We're going to play by the rules.
Yes.
The rules that nobody else abides by except us?
Yeah. I mean, that's just, that's basically it. That was the same argument. We had the same argument over issues, all the issues that we've been dealing with over the last 10, 15 years that, for instance, the Constitution only prohibits torture when there's a Democratic president who's willing to say that it does. And when it's not a Democratic president and they want to torture people, they just say, or pulling their fingernails out, but it's not torture, it's enhanced interrogation, and that apparently works. The media is like,
it's everything.
That's a different word.
Democratic president, for the most part, Democratic presidential candidates release their tax returns.
Yes.
Bernie only released one, but we'll leave that for now.
Okay.
Republicans don't.
Well,
I mean,
this
the
one
ones
doesn't,
who have
and
had
now they don't
problems
have to.
releasing their tax returns have been Mitt Romney and Donald Trump.
Mm-hmm. So, no longer necessary.
Well, I mean, pass a law.
You could, and some Democratic states will try. That'll be interesting. They'll try and do that, and then I have an idea about how they fix that. Brett Kavanaugh says, "Hey, that's unconstitutional." 4 other people say, "You're right, it is, Brett." Or if you are Brett, if that is your real name, Justice Garrett. Dun dun dun.
Yeah, I do think
just
that
do
it'll
that.
be interesting. Like, say California, which I think even did pass a law. I don't know what they're doing about it.
There are a few states that are.
New York, let's say New York and California did, and Trump's not on the ballot. Well, then all of a sudden the popular vote doesn't matter, though it doesn't matter anyway, we're told. So who cares?
Okay. Yeah.
Agree. And let's, we won't even count the votes there. We'll just put up the EVs and go for it. Why even count the popular vote? Just count the electoral vote.
Right. By the way, I think a lot of the Electoral College may have been there by mistaken identity, and this election is invalid.
Right.
I don't know that I mean, who knows? We have to take this very seriously. The election is in their hands. They may all have been, I don't know, could have been lots of Chris Garretts, could have been anybody. We should check this out. I love the doors that this theory opens, and I guess now that they've pulled the theory, quote unquote, now Ed Whelan has backed off. I don't know. I take it that the political
said it's the most plausible explanation.
Oh, well, did he get the memo yet? I mean, maybe not.
He actually posted his story about 10 minutes before Whalen said he did a bad thing.
This is the most plausible theory.
Yeah, the funny thing is, he said he's 100% certain Kavanaugh wasn't in on it.
All right. Oh, on it. Like on it.
And I'm like, I'm actually more worried that you would be in a position to be 100% certain that he's actually speaks to you because you're a wacko and disgusting.
But it did open a nice door. I enjoyed the ability to now just question everything. Like, again, I don't are you sure that Trump even nominated Brett Kavanaugh? I don't know. I keep coming back to this point. I don't know that I don't know that the paper is valid. I don't know that you signed it. I could certainly make the case that you didn't read it. You didn't read any of the other things. So you're just signing things, and I don't know. Maybe it doesn't say Brett Kavanaugh. I haven't seen it.
I agree, and I need to see Trump do it live and not on TV. They faked the moon landing.
Right.
So yes. You got to come to my house, and I need to see it.
That's right. Otherwise, and by the way, here's the floor plan of my house.
Here's the floor plan, and here's my friend Chris Garrett standing right over here.
Right.
So it's we passed insanity at this point, but let's deal with that. Let's deal with that. These guys have no rules. There's no decency. There's no nothing.
Yeah.
Rob Goldstone on Today's Show.
What?
Oh, that's pretty bizarre. On Monday.
The Trump Tower meeting guy?
Yeah, Rob Goldstone.
Sure. I don't see why you wouldn't have him on. What'd you say?
It's just so random. The Today Show.
The Today Show. All right. Today.
What questions do you think Savannah Guthrie will have for him?
Good. I don't know. What is it about today
publicizing
that makes him relevant?
Music career. He's coming just to plug the new album.
That could be it. Maybe that's it. Yeah, I'm not here to answer those kind of questions actually today, Savannah.
I'm just here for him. He's going on tour in the Ukraine.
And his voice is like awesome. He did incredible. Yeah, it's been a hell of a day, I must say, and the theory has been a lot of fun, and it has opened up a lot of possibilities. But yeah,
how do you think Whalen thought this was going to go?
I don't know. I guess he thought, I'll give you a Swiss bank account number, and then I will say these things. I think this is exactly what he thought. He would inject it into the bloodstream, and then once it took hold and once Fox and Friends aired, the contract is, once Fox and Friends airs it, you're free to disavow it if you want to. You can check that the wire transfer's been made, and then you can delete your tweet. All we need is But why Ed Whelan? I don't know. I don't know. I guess he thought. I don't know what he thought. I think he thought it was just
funny
fun.
Because Fox and Friends was talking about it this morning.
Yes, right. And I think that was the plan. Was for they needed somebody to say it. Why they needed someone supposedly sober and serious to say it, I have no idea. That maybe that's what they needed to get through the 12 hours between, the end of the Twitter cycle on the East Coast and it beginning again the next morning. But maybe they needed someone who could survive 12 hours of scrutiny by being plausibly referred to as a serious, sober-minded person. And then we would debate for 12 hours whether or not he really was that. And then he could wake up and disavow the whole thing, but the damage has been done. I doubt, it's hard for me to believe that he thought it was going to go like he would put this out there and then Garrett would say, "Damn it, you got me." And Kavanaugh would say, "Yes, high five." And then he would be confirmed to the Supreme Court and everything would be awesome. I don't think that he thought that was going to happen. I guess he thought that it would cast doubt. And I did hear some people discussing it yesterday that maybe all Kavanaugh really wanted out of this was the ability to fight back without denying the attack took place anymore, so that he would look sympathetic. I'm not denying that you had this terrible thing happen to you. I'm simply denying that I did it. But seems to me you could have done that without saying, because I have an exact double in my class and here's the floor plan of his house. I don't think that was necessary at all.
Yeah, I think that obviously killed it, actually, because when you stop and thought about it, and of course it made Professor Ford come out and say, I knew
both
Garrett.
I know who they are.
I knew who he was. It wasn't him.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know why he got mixed up in this. But apparently lots of evidence that he's not a serious, sober-minded guy, but that he is, in fact, quite a right-wing loon. And I did see people tweeting, I guess, screen grabs of his old arguments about how gay judges ought not to be allowed to rule on marriage equality cases, and basically the basic gays are ruining everything argument.
Yeah, no, he's crazy. I mean,
it's not very serious.
That Politico called him sober-minded. I'm like, yeah, right.
Yes.
Okay.
And Atrios correctly pointing out, it's not that he's actually sober-minded. It's that the media charade, as always, is to say that Republicans with suits and ties are sober-minded, even when they say crazy-ass things. And and then people just go, I don't know, they said he was serious and sober-minded. And there was a ton of people out there saying this theory, a lot of right-wingers saying this theory sounds completely bonkers to me, but the fact that Ed Whelan is propagating it tells me there's maybe something here. This might not have hit it on the head, but there's something more we don't know here. Yeah, your friend Ed is demented. You didn't know? Now you're in on it.
That reminded me of, what's his name? Andrew Sullivan and his crazy Palin children conspiracy theories.
Okay, yeah.
And he's got, guess where he is? He's got a gig in Eric Magazine. He still pretend like he's a serious person.
That. Well, I fully believe that the Palins are nuts and that they did something weird and stupid. I don't know if that had to do with whose children were which, but I'm positive they're dumb and they tried to pull the wool over someone's eyes about something unnecessary, and probably made a mess of it too. And if it was their kids and their maternity, then sure, great, I'll take it.
Yeah, I actually don't buy that one. It didn't actually make any sense. She said she was pregnant because they didn't want Bristol to be pregnant. I don't know. Because she ended up being pregnant 3 or 4 more times.
Right. Oh no, here I go again.
Exactly.
I'm pregnant all the time.
Oops.
Yeah. Kids get pregnant. Happens.
It just still dawns on me, like, how could you not just use birth control? Everybody knows you're a phony. Just use it.
Yeah, I mean, you could have. You're supposed, if you're gonna be a hypocrite, Enjoy the benefits.
Do it.
Why don't you be a hypocrite and not pregnant?
Exactly.
Well, indoctrination is a weird
running
thing.
Around and not married.
Three
But
kids
okay. From 3 different fathers, in fact.
Is that right?
Believe.
She has 3?
Yeah.
I didn't realize she had 3.
Or 2. You know what? I might exaggerate it.
3, 2.
To make the
Chris
story
Garrett.
better.
I don't know. Maybe he's the father.
It's at least 2, and I know it's 2 different fathers.
That's true. But the president's got her beat there.
Yep, he's 5 for 5. No, he's what? 3 with 1, 3, 1, 1.
Yes, and maybe the doorman knows about another one.
Oh, that's right. Excuse me, 6 and 4.
So, okay.
Whatever happened to that story?
He got released from his capture and kill agreement, and nobody cared.
Exactly. Everybody knows the guy's scum. That's amazing.
So, yeah, that didn't go anywhere. All right. Well, let's see. Let's see. There's that. There's the wall across the Sahara Desert. I'm trying to think what else is in the news. Yes.
I don't know that. It's just this Kavanaugh dominated everything. But Trump going to Las Vegas. He went to Las Vegas.
Yeah.
And there was coverage of it, but I think it's over. I think people are sick of the whole thing. I even think his tweets are done. Don't you get that feeling? It's enough.
I definitely see fewer Trump tweets these days. I've never followed him. I just rely on other people to show me what's interesting and funny about what he's doing, and horrible. But I see less and less.
Usually, it's the most jarring stuff. Again, I think we talked about this last week. I thought his Puerto Rico thing was like the biggest impact thing he'd had in a while. So he's got a shock and jar.
Yes.
And he was in Las Vegas, and so what?
Yeah, I mean, Daniel Dale covered it. He said the normal crazy stuff. He made some accusations even about Dr. Ford, and it shook people up a little bit, but it doesn't have the same punch that it used to, and I think that's great.
Me too.
All right, we'll take a 1-minute break and then build a wall across the Sahara Desert as quickly as possible. We'll be right back.
Okay. What are you talking about? It's just...
It is nonsense. We're back now from our short break, having a discussion about the insanity of the idea. Even we don't know that it really happened, and the White House denies it. But building that wall across, he actually said maybe. I read an article, read the CNN report of it, and the thing that struck me was I guess he said the way Trump put it, but maybe he was just mistaken in the way he was speaking. Is you should build a wall around the Sahara Desert, which also doesn't make we need to build a wall around the Sahara, which made me think like a ring around the Sahara. That doesn't make any sense at all. Hardly anybody's going in if they don't have to.
He's a moron. Let's just leave it at that. He's a complete moron.
And
it's not a joke. He's not doing it for shock value.
Coverage.
He is that stupid.
Yes. Apparently.
Anyway, here's an actual development, which I think is a good one. Greg Sargent of the Washington Post reporting Democrats are likely to question Kavanaugh directly at the upcoming hearing about whether he knew about or was involved in Ed Whelan's strategy of publicly blaming someone else for the attack on Christine Ford. Senior aides tell him.
All right. He will say no, and then
he will say no, and then what do we do?
Well,
we'll have to bring on Ed Whelan. So we'll have to check your phone records. Where were you?
Oh, that's true. I did see, let's see. Let me see if I can find it and credit it properly here. But good question. Everyone insisting that Ed Whelan, it was Mark Sumner saying if Ed Whelan is part of a team who's been coaching Kavanaugh, and because he's such an insider, and Kavanaugh has been at the White House for 4 days in a row, has Whelan also been at the White House?
Great
question. Check the visitors' logs. Not that they keep them anymore.
Yeah, well, we don't get to see those visitors' logs.
And that's another thing. I guess. Oh, and Trump's tweet about the case now saying, "I have no doubt that if the attack on Dr. Ford was as bad as she says, taking issue with that, charges would have been immediately filed with local law enforcement authorities by either her or her loving parents. I ask that you bring those filings forward so we can learn the date, time, and place."
He is such an ass.
Yeah, well, that's pretty disgusting. P.S., just for, historical value, Well, I ask you, it's not the FBI. That was the thing he said at his speech yesterday. Why didn't you call the FBI 36 years ago? And, of course, people earnestly answering, well, you wouldn't call the FBI about a rape that takes place in Montgomery County, Maryland. Who would you call?
It's funny. I'm sorry. Yeah, who would you call? His mom.
Normally,
hey, your son raped me. I mean, yes.
Well, you wouldn't call. Yeah, that was, I guess, something you could do. You'd call. I guess. I mean, honestly, you'd call the police, and the police would then call the state's attorney for Montgomery County, Maryland, and they would probably be surprised at that point to hear Mrs. Kavanaugh pick up the phone, because she was an assistant state's attorney for Montgomery County at the time of the attack. And I'm sure everything would have gone swimmingly. And I'm sure that Brett didn't tell anybody anything ever like, yeah, we should get a keg for this party. My mom works in the prosecutor's office.
Okay. I'm going to read you 2 tweets and ask you which one do you think will get more attention.
All right.
These are from Donald Trump. The first says, the radical left lawyers want the FBI to get involved now, all caps. Uh-huh. Why didn't someone call the FBI 36 years ago?
I don't know.
That's tweet number 1.
Yeah.
Tweet number 2. I will chair the UN Security Council meeting on Iran next week! !
Okay. I don't think you will. I don't think he'll find his way into the room.
But the reality is that in a normal presidency, that would be huge news.
Yes. Well, it'll be huge news here, too. I mean, when he gets up and wanders out of the room. Where's the toilet? Wait, sir, we're in the middle of a, Security Council meeting.
It's just insanity.
I can't wait.
In theory, the Iran issue, he broke the Iran deal. Iran could be building nukes for all we know.
Uh-huh.
We have the sanctions fell apart, and the Europeans don't care, and the U.S. is doing it, and they say they're doing secondary. No one even knows what the end of that story was. I kept hearing it, and you hear it on Joe Scarborough and these people, that Trump has really been the toughest on Russia. Look at the sanctions. But then you read all the reporting. So how are these sanctions being enforced? Is there any reporting on that?
No.
Like actual important things?
I don't think so. I mean, yeah.
Kavanaugh's important, don't get me wrong, and I'm not saying his reaction to all this doesn't matter. It's just he's not a president. It's a game show. It's a TV show. And somehow, we let it go. He's going to chair the UN Security Council meeting on Iran. Wow. What UN Security? I didn't know there was a UN Security Council meeting on Iran.
Oh, well, no one would tell me, but it's possible.
What could possibly happen there? Is he going to pound his fist and say, you guys, I'm going to kill you if you don't sanction Iran? What happens?
I don't know.
I don't know what happens at them usually. Yelling at the Russian ambassador? What's he going to do there?
Yes. I don't know. Do they have a gavel? I don't know what they use there. I assume he'll go there and yell about
I think they do
Iran.
have a gavel.
Iran. U.S. president.
Yeah, is he going to do his speech? Is he going to tell them about his electoral college victory?
That's probably he's going to do that. I mean, I know that they do this and that they take turns among the countries on the Security Council chairing things, and it happens from time to time that the head of state will come and sit in on it. And I guess this is meant to be, it's like the vice president turning up for a vote in the Senate, not necessarily because he's got to break the tie, but because it's the sort of signal that it's an important thing. And but I imagine he thinks this is an opportunity to do something, but I don't know that anything will happen, because someone will just say, no one's worried about it because the rest of the world can veto anything. But there's plenty of other players, permanent members of the Security Council, who can do that. I don't know I don't know. I think he just thinks that's an important thing, like doing a summit meeting. Why all his meetings are summits? Because those are important things that presidents do. So I'm going to go. I'm going to sit there. I'll be on TV. The UN will have to listen to me. I can tell the UN how bad it is and how much I hate it and how much I hate Iran. And everyone will have to listen to me, and they won't be able to get rid of me. I think that's all he's interested in. And I'm sure Bolton probably told him, this is a fantastic opportunity. I'll give you a speech to read that'll bash Iran. in as many ways as possible, and
I mean,
that'll
I've
be
heard
broadcast around the
speeches
world.
to the UN, but I mean, the council, you're sort of sitting around and people are supposed to be talking to each other.
I don't know what happens at the Security Council, but I imagine that whatever it is that happens there, the chair has the prerogative to make some opening remarks, and this means that Bolton gets to write a. Yeah, yeah, probably. I mean, everyone will take their earpieces
Haley
off and
will
walk
come
out.
in and take the chair back.
Yes, right. I have to eat lunch, Nikki. Sit here. Oh, Ivanka could sit there.
Oh, he could fire
Didn't he do that once? That's true. He could fire her, but didn't he once? Where was it? At one of the G summits, G7, G8, G20, something, where he got up and left, and he had Ivanka take his seat.
Yes,
that was awesome.
Or maybe Ivanka could come in and take the seat. That's true.
Yes, she should go ahead and take care of things, and he can go have lunch and play 9 holes, and come back.
Yep, out to Badminster.
Yeah,
here I go.
Have the helicopter started.
It's just, what an insanity we live in. Oh my God.
Let's see. I do see that there's have you heard about this one? I missed this, but Think Progress has a report, the headline of which is interesting enough for me to look at. Trump's lawyer, this time Jay Sekulow, pushes insane lie.
He's a very credible guy. Go ahead.
Right. He's a sober something or other. A credible, sober, serious-minded. Trump's lawyer pushes insane lie about Trump's Lester Holt interview.
Oh, yeah.
Curious. I did not see this, but they're now claiming, I guess, let's see. During an interview on Wednesday's edition of Chris Cuomo's CNN show, Trump lawyer Jay Sekulow suggested that footage of the infamous May 2017 interview with NBC's Lester Holt, in which the president essentially copped to obstruction of justice, has somehow been doctored. Of course, he offered no evidence for his claim, which isn't consistent with the video of the interview, but it's been doctored, I tell you. So I guess that's it, where he says, I was going to fire Comey anyway because I said this Russia thing. It's just not right. I'm getting rid of him. It's been doctored. Meanwhile, of course, yesterday we were talking about the fact that Trump told, was it interviewers from The Hill, or did I just read it in The Hill? Who was interviewing him? Where he said, I should have fired Comey right after the primaries. And I don't know if you heard me discussing that yesterday, but the idea, I should have fired him right after the primaries. Are you sure you mean the primaries there, sir? Yeah, or right after the convention. No, you can't fire the FBI director after the primaries. You don't understand the difference.
I mean,
you need to be elected, and then you're sworn in.
No, and sworn in, and not impeached.
Yes, right.
But I mean, that was, I believe, in a Hill interview. Yeah, I think you're right. I think it was John Solomon of all people.
Yeah, well, that's where I read it anyway. I just thought that was pretty incredible, and
I had people arguing. And he's going to fire countries. He's going to say, "Listen, all you guys are deadbeats." He's also going to talk about people not paying their dues. He's big on club membership dues.
Yes, right. He loves
and he'll remember now that why Mueller hates him is because they had a fight about the dues.
Right. Which, and it wasn't even much of a fight. Mueller said, forget it. I quit. I'd rather not.
Exactly. That was the fight. I don't
want to pay. I don't want to pay your dues increase.
You screwed me on the dues. I'm out of here. That was the fight.
Right. He's so bitter and holds such a huge grudge.
By the way, he's had fights about dues all over the country. He had one at the Jupiter Trump course back in the day.
Yeah, and I
think
he
sued
lost
him and everything.
One. Yeah, he lost that suit because that was an interesting one. He bought an existing club where people had refundable deposits, essentially, that they made to join the club. He put $100,000 in a club improvement fund, and if you ever leave, you can get a refund. But in the meanwhile, it sits there and helps finance the operations of the club. And he bought it, and he changed the rules. From now on, if you leave the club, that's not refundable anymore. I get to keep the $100,000.
Yeah.
And everybody said, no, I have a contract with this, you bought the contract along with the club. No, I didn't. You're wrong. So he sues.
He had no case.
Oh,
he took it to court anyway because that's who he is.
I never back down until I lose, or I settled, which I don't do.
Where's my Roy code?
And he forgets he's dead, and then he ends up in trouble. And now the lawyer he took with him all the time is going to jail. So
right. The other one is at some point it's going to happen. He's going to fire Rudy, and he's going to say, "You were no corn."
And he'll just deny it. You were never my lawyer. What are you talking about? I have no idea what. Let's see. I'm trying to look at. You hear the other story. There's more developments on the story out of Yale Law School, and Yale generally about Tiger Mom.
What did Tiger Mom do now besides telling people to wear short skirts and low-cut blouses?
Just that, the whole no accident that Brett Kavanaugh's female law clerks looked like models, Yale professor told students. And there's a follow-up report on that in The Guardian, which I thought was a little more revealing than the one we read yesterday. But I do see, I guess, where we are now over in the Hill, I have a story that just by way of follow-up. Yale Law School dean responds to report that Kavanaugh hired women with, quote, certain look. And by the way, I had a quick look at all the clerks that I could find about, mentioned in the press. And I don't know. But there's a lot of dark-haired women, and I thought that was kind of interesting. But, that doesn't really mean anything in particular. The look that I could see was they look like clerks. They're professional looking, and I think maybe that was it.
You didn't get a picture of the interview. That's what the kid,
right. I guess that's true.
I mean, listen, it's Amy Chuo who said it. So
yes,
let her
very
explain herself.
bizarre.
What did she mean?
That's the thing, is she sort of disappeared from the scene.
Well, she's in the hospital. I heard that she has a severe illness.
I see. Well, me too.
But
so bye.
The whole thing is ridiculous. The whole Yale thing.
I thought that was weird.
They're a bunch of ridiculous people.
Yes, but it does bring up a valid topic that we could probably spend days on if we needed to. That this actually is the way it works. There's a very small closed circle club. This is essentially your ticket to the big time, and a lot of people would do almost anything to get these clerkships. I thought it was interesting, for instance, that Chua's description of how you should dress it wasn't, smart, clean-cut professional dress. It was you should dress in a very outgoing way, which is sort of a very interesting description. I mean, actually, sort of the opposite of what clothing is supposed to do for you. But, if you're going out of your clothing, then why bother wearing it at all? But outgoing clothing, that means
I think everybody understood exactly what you meant.
Right. Like, for instance, can you imagine let's say, a male clerk is going, not a male clerk, M-A-I-L, but
dress outgoing.
Yeah, right. You need a more outgoing tie with that suit. You have a very introverted tie. No, that's not really what they meant. Outgoing means coming out of your top, I guess. But who knows?
We know what it meant. I mean, dress provocatively or dress sexy. Dress like a woman.
Yes, or he likes. I figure. Apparently, the type is dark-haired, sexy librarian. I guess because I didn't see anything. To be honest, looking through them, I'm like, well, they all look similar, but they look like law clerks. So I don't know what to do. But maybe that's his thing. I don't know. There are all kinds of kinks out there. And why did you go into law, Judge Kavanaugh? Tell us about it. Well, I thought that. I have a fetish for women lawyers. As my mom was one.
It's a mom thing? Oh, my God.
I don't think he'll admit it, but that could be it. Look, people like, whatever. But
well, I
didn't get what they meant.
The guy clearly has come from a culture that treated women as objects.
True. Oh, yes.
That was Georgetown Prep seems to have been that way.
You found the Yale drinking club that I didn't want to mention the other day.
Yeah, tits and,
Yeah, it was not good. And, but the culture of, I was saying the closed culture of making it, the way to make it to the upper echelons of the legal profession. For Brett Kavanaugh, I guess we should say at some point, usually when you're under consideration for the Supreme Court. We've said before, look, he's not really much of a judge, much of a scholar. He's a political operative who happens to have a record as a judge because they gave it to him. There's nothing about, like, for instance, in the old days, you'd bring forward a judge, a nominee for the Supreme Court for a reason that had something to do with, like, their legal mind or what they would bring to the table. Here we have a guy who happens to have a paper trail that suggests that he would have no problem vindicating expressions of executive power up to and including whatever it takes to get Donald Trump off the hook. But he's not particularly well known for being, like, just one of the steeliest judicial minds around.
No,
and that's not how he got the job. It makes sense. Basically, it's just like everything else with the way things work in the, center right to extreme right world. If you put the right trappings on something, polite society says, that looks like it should be happening. The guy in the TV has a suit. He must be telling the truth. He wouldn't just make it up. This guy is an appellate court judge. That's who we nominate for Supreme Court justice jobs.
He's more of a Rehnquist type who basically, who did fine. And actually, I don't think he did as well as, though I don't know. I don't think Yale does class ranks, and Rehnquist was a good student at Stanford Law School. Mm-hmm. But in essence, Rehnquist was just a political operative who worked in the Nixon Justice Department, and he wanted to be a judge, and he worked for it, and someone said put him up, and they put him up, and he was seated. But it wasn't like, wow, what a great legal mind. No one ever said Rehnquist had a great legal mind.
I mean, it happens from time to time.
Was given the job.
Yeah. And not everybody does have a great legal mind, and sometimes there's other reasons to put people on the bench. It's just Kavanaugh is...
Believe you me, the great legal mind doesn't matter in the Supreme Court. It's a political position.
Yes. And so there's nothing in particular, outrageous about it. It's just sort of, if you've ever wondered, like, well, what does Brett Kavanaugh have that others don't? There's only 9 seats there. Why Kavanaugh? And the answer is, 1, he's been a reliable political operative. And 2, people say, well, he has the pedigree. And the thing is, like, how do you get the pedigree? For one thing, and if you trace the steps back, like, well, he has the pedigree because he's an appellate court judge. Okay. How did he get to be an appellate court judge? Well, it's not like the farm system where you sit as a district court judge and then they say, you've done a terrific job. It used to be, maybe in olden times, but we're going to promote you to the Court of Appeals. It's now very political, and people place them on the Court of Appeals because they know that later on, if I need to move you to the Supreme Court and you're a reliable political operative, people won't gasp in horror if I put you up because now you're a circuit court judge. Oh, yeah, we're used to that. Happens all the time. Circuit court judge, fantastic. Go ahead. He didn't work his way up in the judicial ranks. He was a political operative, and he was the guy who put papers on the president's desk and said, sign this, sir. And lo and behold, one of the things that George W. Bush signed was a nomination for Brett Kavanaugh to jump basically from never really actually practiced law anywhere, never actually was a judge anywhere, to judge on what most people consider to be the second most important federal court in the country. And from there, easy step to the Supreme Court. But before that, how do you get to those positions? And that goes back to what's going on at Yale Law School, which is to say, if you make it to Yale Law School, and it's not that easy to do, some people have it easier than others, but if you make it there and you find yourself competing for the top spots in the class, there's a program there and at Harvard Law School and at Yale and at a few other schools that's basically about, come talk to me. I'm a professor. I can get you interviews for clerkships with the right judges. And there's a whole cadre of the right judges. There are judges that are known in these circles as feeder judges who, if you clerk for them on the circuit courts, they are very aggressive, really, and known to go to justices with whom they have a relationship. Sometimes they clerked for them at some point and say, I've got a clerk for you. And it's not, Supreme Court justices don't put ads in the paper, clerk wanted. It's a very closed circle. And they do things like, I had a clerk who became a circuit court judge, and we have lunch together all the time at blah, blah, blah club. And I'll call him, and he'll give me my next clerks. And that's basically what happens. And if you come from Harvard, you come from Yale, a few other schools, not the whole Ivy League. It doesn't really work that way for the whole Ivy League. They're very rare. It's rare to pick clerks. It's actually rare to pick clerks who are Ivy League grads who aren't Harvard and Yale, but there are a few. And then there are a couple other law schools out there. And then these days, the circle is a little wider. But I was reading this Guardian piece about Chua and what was going on there, and it was really kind of revealing. I'll recommend that everybody sort of take a look at it. But there's like an unofficial department of sorts at the Yale Law School that's all about making sure, because it's prestigious, it's part of the Yale mystique. If you come here and you work hard, we'll get you one of these clerkships, and you get one of these clerkships, and if you get it with the feeder judge, you have a great shot at clerking for the Supreme Court. If you clerk for the Supreme Court, you can get a top job in Justice Department, in the Solicitor General's office, or maybe even become a judge yourself, and that's sort of the path that they took. And lo and behold, as it happens, since it's all a who you know kind of thing, wow, how weird is it that some people are just finding out now? For instance, Brett Kavanaugh, on the cusp of finding himself on the Supreme Court, graduate of Georgetown Prep. And so is Neil Gorsuch, the very last guy that hey, they're all moving on the same paths. That's really weird. And I guess people have always thought, well, of course, people who make it to the Supreme Court are from Harvard and Yale. But Harvard and Yale work very hard to make sure that nobody else gets in there either. And there's apparently people who dedicate their lives to grooming, and I think that's a very loaded term for it, and probably quite right, especially when you're talking about Brett Kavanaugh, grooming clerks for these jobs. And it's funny, too, when I was reading this Guardian piece and one other, I think, that also the Hill's response from the Yale Law School deans, when I'm reading through it, there's a lot of reports that get quoted from clerks just sort of supporting his character before all of this stuff broke wide. And it's really funny how a few incidents in your life can change the perception of everything. Because previously the selling point on Kavanaugh was, this guy is a mentor to women in law. His mom was a lawyer, so that must be the thing. It's motivated him. And he's one of the few judges who have more female clerks than male clerks. As a matter of fact, for the past few years, he has hired only women clerks. That is how progressive-minded and what a mentor he is to women in law. And now, of course, that looks a little shadier. Like, that's weird. He only hires women, and they all look the same, and they're kind of model-ish looking, although I didn't find that necessarily to be inconsistent with being a professional-looking clerk, but okay. But it certainly gives a different spin to the idea that, wow, he's a champion of women, or he's kind of pervy and he hires only women. I don't know which one that is. Strom Thurmond, huge mentor to women, right? He was constantly hiring personal secretaries of a certain look, and it's because he was grooming them for leadership or something.
Yeah.
He's grooming you for command.
Yeah. Well,
no, he isn't.
There you go. Hey, everything you just discussed just goes to show you just the complete nonsensical narrative about our judicial system. Look, federal courts are better than state courts by and large. It's a better system. The judges are better than trial court judges. I almost wish that we imposed a requirement that you had to be a trial court judge for 5 years before you could be on the appellate court.
It would be nice.
Because
trial lawyers certainly support the idea.
Yeah, because appellate court judges have no idea for the most part, they don't know what a trial court is. I mean, Kavanaugh doesn't know what a court is.
They don't set foot in them, typically.
Yeah, they do not.
And the people who move on this path move directly into appellate law. From day one, when they're done with their clerkship, they don't deal in trials, and it's kind of an important thing.
It is, and because you're overseeing those things. Anyway, Dave, I'm going to go.
All right.
Get back to your 30 minutes.
Very
Thanks
good.
for letting me have a Friday rant. Have a good weekend.
Thank you. You do the same. All right. Take care. Hi, it's me, David Waldman, your host for Kagro in the Morning, interrupting this little break to say thanks so much to all of you who are contributing supporters of Kagro in the Morning. Thousands of you are downloading the show each day, but fewer than 1 in 25 regular listeners are donating to help keep us on the air. For the money you'd spend on a single 3-minute iTunes song, we bring you 2 hours of great news and entertainment every day, 5 days a week. Patreon.com, Patreon.com makes it easy. You can find us there by searching Kagro X or David Waldman or Kagro in the Morning or even Daily Coast Radio in their search box, and you'll be right where you need to be to make easy, recurring monthly contributions to support our show. Once again, thanks so much for your support. Welcome back now to the Kagro in the Morning Show here on Netroots Radio, and we have a lot to catch up on, and of course, it being Friday, we could try to do that, or we could obsess over a few things and feel like we prepared you that way. Good point here, by the way, about what it means to dress outgoing, I think, and how that could sometimes be not necessarily inconsistent with a professional look, although you could take it further than others, I guess. Arliss Bunny pointing out, well, for instance, her idea here was it means unbutton blouse enough so the top of the bra is visible. Do you think that's a little too far? I don't know. Short pencil skirt, 4-inch heels, hair down so she can play with it. Well, I don't know. I mean, I can't tell from these are. You wouldn't necessarily put that in your headshot for when you're up for a partnership in a big law firm. So, I mean, I don't know what they look like on the day of. But I think drives the point home a little bit better is, she says, or to put it another way, dress like you sell pharmaceuticals for big pharma to doctors. And there we get the picture of, oh, yes, well, I mean, a doctor wouldn't just simply like let somebody in who's, I don't know, I guess if you just showed up in your underwear, for instance, well, they might let you in for a number of reasons, not the least of which I need to help you seek treatment. You have to look professional, but there's certainly a certain look that salespeople, pharmaceutical companies know works better with certain doctors, or even with all doctors, than with others. So I get the point. There's definitely a code of dress that works well. But I'll be honest. I went to take a look just to see if it was like looking at the compilations that I've seen of all the Fox News anchors and reporters and stuff, all blonde women, and it makes the point very obviously that Roger Ailes and/or possibly Bill Shine, who helped Ailes cover up all of his rape culture and now works at the White House and is helping shepherd Kavanaugh through his problems, because I specialize in helping sweep rape culture under the rug. It became obvious that there was a type that was working there. And so I thought, wonder if there's a type here. And I knew that that woman, Zena Bash, was that it? Who was sitting behind Kavanaugh at the hearings, was also a former clerk. She was the one that was accused of flashing the white power sign. Although I do note that it seems like that should only be something you're able to do with the right hand, and that the left hand one, but then again, white power people are probably pretty dumb, so maybe they don't care. Anyway, beside the point. Anyway, that woman was one of his former clerks. And I looked up a couple other former clerks, and I did notice right away, well, long, dark, straight hair, and a certain set of facial features seemed similar. But once you begin expanding the circle and getting more and more people in there, it's pretty clear, like, all right, well, this one has blonde hair, but again, sort of long, straight hair thing. But, I mean, what is hair going to look like on, well, to be honest, what's hair going to look like on graduates of Yale Law School? It's going to look long and straight because it's white person's hair, and he's going to hire white people. And there was a certain diversity to it. There were a couple of people that appeared to be of, let's say, South Asian origin, Indian, Pakistani, perhaps. But again, long, straight, dark hair. There were one or two African American women that I saw in there too. So, I mean, I was saying, there's a real argument to be made prior to these allegations. A real argument would have been more comfortable making about Kavanaugh's clerks being more diverse. Unfortunately, it just happens, for whatever reason, that it ends up looking shadier after the fact. But I think everything looks a little shadier when you're accused of attempting to rape a 15-year-old girl, even though you were 17 at the time and drunk, and everybody knows we forgive all of that stuff or whatever. And isn't it great that he's grown up to be a carpool dad and coach a 15-year-old girls basketball team? There's a lot of things from his childhood that he seems to be really into. Empowering women lawyers is one of them, and girls basketball is another. God help us if we ever find out that Christine Blasey, as a 15-year-old, was on the basketball team. I wonder if that happened. Please don't tell me that. All right, let's see. A couple of other comments to catch up on here. Matthew Rigdon asking, so like Trump, Kavanaugh is partial to women who look like his daughter? I don't know. Does his daughter look like that? I didn't think so. Honestly, it didn't strike me as the case. Thank God. I don't really want to talk about that as a possibility. I don't want to make this case any worse than it has to be. Let's see. Ballerina X. Hello. How you doing? Go look at the first hour of his congressional testimony and the sea of short-skirted crossed legs in the first row behind him. I noted it then. All right. Well, it's entirely possible. And like I said, the fact that they're, I don't know. You could do worse. If you're going to have a thing, you could do worse than saying my thing is smart women who are competent professionals. I mean, is it fair to say I have a fetish for women who are actually accomplished, smart, and can handle themselves? Well, okay. I mean, I guess if it were a fetish, as fetishes go, that would be a pretty good one. And as long as you're not being acting in untoward fashion with them, then hey, if it gives you I don't know what kind of pleasure, and I won't even want to ask if it happens to if it makes your day one way or another to give career opportunities to capable, smart women, I guess I, in the end, don't want to really criticize you for that. So, I don't know. It's just weird. It's just a matter of spin, essentially, how you spin these things. And I guess in the same way, this closed circle thing is a matter of spin. It's either a cabal of elite prep school wackos just giving their buddies a leg up, or I need people I can trust, and I want people I'm interested in people from a similar background. I'll try and give a leg up in terms of racial, ethnic, gender diversity. But I trust prep schools and Yale Law School to produce the finest minds available, and that's where I'm going to go for my clerks. And I would wish you would think more broadly, and sometimes they probably do, but it's an explainable preference. All right, I guess I should take a look then at the Guardian piece here, just to give you a flavor of what I'm talking about here. Now, we got part of this story the other day from another source. The no accident Brett Kavanaugh's female law clerks looked like models, Yale professor told students. The Guardian learns Amy Chua said she would advise students on their physical looks to help win post in Kavanaugh's chambers. And I thought this article hinted at least a little bit more at this closed circle. Let's see. Our authors here are Stephanie Kirschgassner. Oh boy. I hope I didn't mangle that too badly. And Jessica Glenza in Washington and New York, respectively. A top professor at Yale Law School who strongly endorsed Supreme Court nominee Brett Kavanaugh as a mentor to women. Privately told a group of law students last year that it was not an accident that Kavanaugh's female law clerks all looked like models and would provide advice to students about their physical appearance if they wanted to work for him, The Guardian has learned. Amy Chua, we learned all this yesterday, a professor at Yale who wrote a best-selling book on parenting called The Battle Hymn of the Tiger Mother, was known for instructing female law students who were preparing for interviews with Kavanaugh on ways they could dress to exude a model-like femininity to help them win a post in Kavanaugh's chambers, according to sources. And the fact that the emphasis is on femininity and model-like femininity at that, I guess, doesn't do anything to shore up my attempt at saving it by saying, oh yeah, he's just into powerful intellects. Kavanaugh is facing intense scrutiny in Washington following an allegation. Well, you know this part. And you know that there are parallels being drawn to the Thomas Hill accusations from the 1990s. Skipping ahead then, Yale provided Kavanaugh with many of the judge's clerks over the years. Here's what I'm really talking about. And Chua played an outsized role in vetting the clerks who worked for him. But the process made some students deeply uncomfortable. Before I continue, I guess I should point out, if you take a look at a picture of Amy Chua and pictures of a number of his better-known clerks, Kavanaugh's clerks, there does exist the possibility, and I mean at the extreme, you could put it this way, there does exist the possibility that Kavanaugh has no such preference, but Amy Chua does. And she's imputing it to him. She's having success placing people. What if it was, I mean, here's a spin for you. What if it was that Amy Chua is just having this tremendous success placing people, but that's because Kavanaugh has a soft spot for Yale because he went there. And you're also, you know, you got a pretty decent pool of prospects to pick from. They're smart kids graduating from Yale Law School. And you send them, and lo and behold, they satisfy Kavanaugh's interest in having smart kids. And I don't know, Chua just is doing a great job sending me people. And Chua thinks, it's my fashion advice and my eye for a certain beauty ideal that's getting them these jobs, as opposed to I'm picking from among the top students at Yale Law School. And hey, presto, they're getting hired by Kavanaugh. Because if you look, that beauty ideal is not all that far removed from Amy Chua's chosen look. I just guess we should point that out. Okay, so the process, it is said, made some students deeply uncomfortable. One source said that in at least one case, a law student was so put off by Chua's advice about how she needed to look and its implications that she decided not to pursue a clerkship with Kavanaugh, a powerful member of the judiciary who had a formal role in vetting clerks who served in the U.S. Supreme Court. Now we're getting into these things. And again, the interesting thing of like, I'm deciding not to pursue a clerkship with Kavanaugh. That's a hell of a position of privilege. I mean, it might be the right choice for you personally or for lots of people. Stay away from this guy. I'm just saying, what a fantastic thing it is. And this is how big an opportunity it really is, and how you can get people to do things that they wouldn't ordinarily agree to do, even if they are strong, smart, capable women. There's such there's so much at stake in getting one of these clerkships, one of these particular clerkships. It works to a certain extent. Hey, I clerked for Judge, Joe Schmo Jackass on the 10th Circuit. You might make it to the Supreme Court. You might. But it turns out that there's a half dozen, maybe a few more, judges out there on the right circuits and who are the right judges, who have the right connections, who just happen to provide, 60-something% of the U.S. Supreme Court's clerks later on. Let's read on with this. In one case, Jed Rubenfeld, also an influential professor at Yale and who is married to Chua, that's a great way of putting it, told a prospective clerk that Kavanaugh liked a certain look. We heard about this. He told me, you should know that Judge Kavanaugh hires women with a certain look. One woman told The Guardian. He did not say what that look was, and I did not ask. Sources who spoke to The Guardian about their experiences with Chua and Rubenfeld would only speak under condition of anonymity because they feared retribution and damage to their future careers. And so they should. They would have that damage. But also, screw you people. There's a little bit of that in this too. Some elements of this story were first published by the Huffington Post. That's awfully nice of The Guardian to acknowledge. We read that one yesterday, I think. Chua advised the same student Rubenfeld spoke to that she ought to dress in an outgoing way for her interview with Kavanaugh, and that the student should send Chua pictures of herself in different outfits before going to the interview. The student did not send the photos. And I don't know if we read this part yesterday or if I paused on it. But again, spin that again for just a second in light of the possibility that this is Chua telling people you need to look like Chua. Not because it works not because Kavanaugh asks for it, but because it happens to work for Kavanaugh. Or there exists the possibility that not only is it Chua's look that Chua is interested in, but Chua seems to be, spin this the right way, and Chua is collecting photos. Send me pictures of yourself in different outfits. Oh, why? That seems kind of weird, don't you think, Professor Chua? I just want to check to make sure that you look, professional and you're looking like Kavanaugh wants you to look. It's not me being pervy, it's Kavanaugh. And by the way, it's not pervy. But just send me a picture of you in that little dress that we talked about. I don't know how it's coming across. Could it be this? Could be this. And God bless you if it is. I don't want to pass judgment. I do want to pass judgment, but I don't know. I'm speculating, but don't you think that could be read in a weird way? Send me pictures of yourself in different outfits. That would probably make me barf. Of course, that's because it's not going to change anything. You don't want to see me in different outfits. First of all, outfits don't look different on me. Or on men, generally speaking. So, who knows? Maybe if you have an eye for fashion, it does. And she does. But is she asking the men to do it? No, she's not. So, there you have it. There is no allegation that the female students who worked for Kavanaugh were chosen because of their physical appearance or that they were not qualified. However, the remarks from Chua and Rubenfeld raised questions about why the couple believed it was important to emphasize the students' physical appearance when discussing jobs with Kavanaugh. The couple were not known to do that in connection with other judges, sources said. And they're not just placing people with Kavanaugh. There's plenty of other places where you can find Yale-trained feeder judges because, again, this is a conveyor belt, a production line to move Yale students to prominent positions, which keeps Yale looking prestigious and people wanting to pay the enormous fees to go to Yale Law School because you can have this opportunity. It is possible that they were making observations but not following edicts from him, said one student who received such instructions. I have no reason to believe he was saying, send me the pretty ones, but rather that he was reporting back and saying, I really like so-and-so, and the way he described them led them to form certain conclusions. Or Tiger Mom had her own conclusions already, and she was pretty sure that she knew what would work best, and basically everybody should have to knuckle under to her tiger instincts. Could that be it? Well, that would be kind of prejudicial. You're just saying that because she's Asian. No, she actually wrote the Tiger Mom book. Oh, well, maybe then. Kavanaugh is close to Justice Anthony Kennedy, whose retirement from the Supreme Court left an opening, and there's all sorts of theories about that. And Kavanaugh was one of 3 judges who vetted clerks to serve in Kennedy's chambers. It said up front here that there was a formal role here going on. Kavanaugh was one of 3 judges who vetted clerks to serve in Kennedy's chambers. How do you vet them? You use them as clerks. His role as a so-called feeder judge made his clerkships among the most coveted spots for law students across the country, but especially at his alma mater, Yale. Because when you show up and you say, where'd you go? Yale. Yay, I went to Yale. That's awesome. Stanford, I'll listen to you. But Yale, I have a soft spot for them. According to one source, Chua invited a group of students that she mentored to a bar last year to catch up, and discuss their plans for clerkships. Not, thank you for sending me pictures of you in several outfits. Let's go to a bar. Just saying, kids like bars. Well, that's probably a bad way of saying it. Graduate students like bars. That's legal. You can say, I'm just saying, side by side, this is not really looking super great for Chua. But she can't be reached for comment. The conversation turned to a high-profile Me Too case that was emerging in the news at the time involving a well-known public figure. The group began to talk about whether the federal judiciary would ever face similar scrutiny. And according to a source, Chua said she did not believe it would. She told the students she had known about allegedly abusive and harassing behavior by another judge, Alex Kaczynski, who was head of the Ninth Circuit and was forced to retire from the bench last year after more than a dozen women accused him of harassment. Not in this article, I guess, is whether or not Chua sent any Yale law grads to Kaczynski. The conversation then turned to Kaczynski's protege and good friend Kavanaugh, who one source said was a familiar name even though he had not yet been nominated to the High Court. Chua allegedly told the students that it was no accident that Kavanaugh's female clerks looked like models. Students reacted with surprise and quickly pointed out, in case you were wondering about tiger momhood, that Chua's own daughter was due to clerk for Kavanaugh. Which either tells you that she had no inkling whatsoever that Kavanaugh was the kind of person who would give her problems, or anyone else problems, or that, man, that tiger mom thing is really remarkably ingrained in her. I mean, I guess she invented the term. It's not going to be ingrained in anyone else any more so than in her. And she's like, look, daughter, you got to do what you got to do to get ahead in this world. And whatever happens, happens. But, she says, the source says here that Chua quickly responded, saying that her own daughter would not put up with any inappropriate behavior. Like Ivanka, right? If she faced any sexual discrimination, why, she'd do something about it. Unless, of course, that type of behavior was coming from her dad. But hey, Chua has canceled her classes at Yale this semester, according to her office, has been hospitalized and is not taking calls. Rubenfeld sent an email to the Yale Law School community that said his wife had been ill and in hospital, because it's the Guardian, and had a long period of recuperation ahead of her. The Guardian has learned that Rubenfeld is currently the subject of an internal investigation at Yale. The investigation is focused on Rubenfeld's conduct, particularly with female law students. Oh my. Students have, if he's just, I don't know what he's doing, but if he's just, even if he's just helping his wife, Amy, run this program, the problem is that the program, as Amy runs it, is send me pictures of yourself in various outfits, and then I'll meet you at a bar, and then we'll talk about Alex Kaczynski and his salaciousness. I'm just helping my wife out with her thing, and she's getting women important jobs in the clerkships. Yeah, but looked at in a certain way. Oh, I guess you're right. The investigation, students have also raised related concerns to Yale authorities about Chua's powerful influence in the clerkships process. The investigation was initiated before Kavanaugh was nominated to serve on the High Court. Rubenfeld said in a statement to The Guardian, in June, Yale University informed me that it would conduct what it terms an informal review of certain allegations, but that to preserve anonymity, I was not entitled to know any specifics. So as a result, I do not know what I am alleged to have said or done. I was further advised that the allegations were not of the kind that would jeopardize my position as a long-tenured member of the faculty. For some years, I have contended with personal attacks and false allegations in reaction to my writing on difficult and controversial but important topics in the law. I have reason to suspect I am now facing more of the same. What? But okay. While I believe strongly that universities must conduct appropriate reviews of any allegations of misconduct, I'm also deeply concerned about the intensifying challenges to the most basic values of due process and free, respectful academic expression and exchange at Yale and around the country. But then there's all these Polaroids. Nevertheless, I stand ready to engage with this process in the hope that it can be expeditiously concluded. In a statement, Yale Law School said it could not confirm or deny the existence of an internal investigation. The Yale Law School official said in an emailed statement, "This is the first we have heard of claims that Professor Chua coached students to look, quote, like models. We will look into these claims promptly, taking into account the fact that Professor Chua is currently unreachable due to serious illness. If true, this advice is clearly unacceptable. I can assure you that we take allegations of faculty misconduct very seriously." Chua and her husband are towering figures, they say, at Yale, and were described by one student as being the center of gravity at the elite law school, connecting students to jobs and clerkships and rewarding loyalty. The couple wrote a controversial book together in 2014 called The Triple Package: How Three Unlikely Traits Explain the Rise and Fall of Cultural Groups in America. It said that a mix of feeling superior with some insecurity were two traits that led to success. It also emphasized the need for impulse control, and that's a good idea. The couple have hired a well-known crisis communications expert, but he did not respond to specific questions from The Guardian. In an emailed statement, Chua told The Guardian, "For more than 10 years I've known him. Judge Kavanaugh's first and only litmus test in hiring has been excellence." Of course, it depends how you define excellence, but hey, he hires only the most qualified clerks, and they have been diverse as well as exceptionally talented and capable. There's good reason so many of them have gone on to Supreme Court clerkships. He only hires those who are extraordinarily qualified. And also, Kennedy says, "Who do you got for me?" I mean, that's the important part here. As I wrote in the Wall Street Journal, he has been an exceptional mentor to his female clerks and a champion of their careers. Among my proudest moments as a parent was the day I learned our daughter would join those ranks and therefore move on to the Supreme Court and therefore become a judge herself, essentially is what is being said here. The White House didn't immediately respond to a request for comment. And that's that. I had a feeling that I had put something aside at some point, and I am not certain that I do have it, but perhaps we can save it for another day, another Monday, either next Monday or maybe another Friday. But there are some great articles about the closed circle of clerkships out there, and I should grab it and use it somewhere. It's a well-known phenomenon in legal circles, and there was an Article 3. There was a blog, an old blog written by, I think, an anonymous group of people who all referred to themselves as the same person. Article 3 junkie, I think, was what they called it, and it was dedicated to blogging about the gossip and lives and social climbing of the elite, the chosen, as they called them, Supreme Court clerks. And they would be able to tell you all about this feeder system, and maybe I will make a point of trying to pull up some good writing that will help make the point clearer if I haven't done it. In the meantime, it's about time to turn the microphones over to Justice Putnam for his program. And just before I go, because it's Friday, I have to squeeze in these stories, and I will send you articles for you to read on your own. First of all, in the gun world, is it Cody Wilson? Is that his name? The guy behind the 3D printed gun craze, and who has faced all sorts of legal jeopardy for publishing the 3D print your own 3D gun plans on the internet, has been arrested. It's a fantastic thing. He was resisting tyranny, the tyranny of you should, if you choose to have sex with people, make sure that they are of legal age of consent. He's been arrested, or no, he hasn't been arrested. He was charged, I believe, and he is now a fugitive from the law on charges of, I guess, some sort of child sexual impropriety. And I don't have the article handy for me now, but I'll grab one for you and make sure that you share. I just wanted to point that out so you knew that for the weekend. And look, that's really about it. There are a couple other stories that I would love to share with you, but it is time to close things out here. And I want to share with you what's coming up on the West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. And if I get to shout something in at the last minute, perhaps we can try this other stupid story, just so you're aware of it. The West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, now open, coming up next. And here's what Justice has on tap for you. An ominous former White House official, ominous? Okay, says Trump is disgracing himself over his attacks on Sessions. Well, I'd love to hear about that. On the rest of the menu, ICE is arresting the sponsors of undocumented children. Now, How terrific. Just to make things even worse, to throw more kids in baby jails. Oh, they have no guardians here, so we'll have to put them in cages. The NRA is losing millions of dollars as it drives away supporters, and their people are arrested on child molestation charges. And the depths of one of Europe's largest money laundering scandals has been exposed. Oh, good, we better catch up on that one. After the break, moving to the chef's table, where, aided by Republicans in the Senate, Trump is steadily chipping away at liberal U.S. appeals court majorities, and the Russian anti-doping program has been reinstated, despite failing to meet key guidelines. All of that and more on the West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy with Chef de Cuisine, Justice Putnam. Bon appetit! Have a great weekend. Maybe I'll shout something to you after this short break.
From Daily Kos Radio on networksradio.com. You have been listening to the Kagro in the Morning Show
with David Waldman.
Yeah, I can't really fit this in here, but what I'd like to raise attention for is James O'Keefe back on the job. He's got a new assignment that he's given himself, and this one raises some really interesting implications about the way dark money is used in this country. How's that for a teaser? Let's talk about that perhaps next week. Have a good weekend.